Okay, I'm going the wrong way. All right. The problem is this is our tradition. So probably we don't need that high peak of pain. Probably we need to do, so that's where we're going next.
Well, didn't your other lines also be somewhat like that before you did continuous control?
Well, all right, so we're going off.
Okay.
No more questions, please. What are you thinking? Right? I know it. This is very rude. It's very rude. Okay. Come on, what are you thinking? All right, so configurable controls. So let's talk about configurable controls. They're really, they govern the transaction flow. They govern the transaction. They're like edits, tolerance limits, matching. Okay, now we're going to go to you. This is Patricia. She's the best developer in the world. Well, come on up. Oh, you don't have to. You got to think.
Yeah, I
okay,
have a
so
microphone.
one of the keys is that Patricia is a developer. We brought her into the department. She audited for about a year application controls, and then came back around to develop. So you got an auditor, practitioner, developing out the tool. Okay.
As Brad has already introduced me, I can save this part. That's great. So let's jump right into the project itself. So we actually had 4 key objectives that we wanted to achieve. The first thing is extract the application control data directly from SAP system. As Brad mentioned, we have 23 different SAP applications that we have to audit each year. So this is where we have to pull the data from. Next, we wanted to have a benchmark report that really compares the data of last year's audit with the current situation on the system, just to get an assessment on what has changed, how many changes did we have on each application, and does that mean we have to go to retest the system, or does it mean we can just skip the test for this year? Next, I already said that we have to evaluate the impact of the changes that we find on the system. So let's say we have different types of changes. Some are relevant, some are not. So it means we don't have every single change that we see in the system means that we have to retest. And last but not least, we had to get buy-in from external audit for this approach, because we need them to follow our approach that we have. And it's what actually thanks to Brad, who involved them from a very early stage. So they were involved in the project planning phase. And we had several meetings with them, telling them what we were doing, getting their agreement, getting their opinions as well. So this was very helpful. Prerequisites. You need support from management and auditors. I think management is clear anyway, because we need someone to fund the whole project. And also, a couple of speakers have already mentioned you need the support of the auditors, or you need to convince the auditors as well, because it means a change of the way they are working. So I don't have to go into details, that we had that a couple of times. Then very important is to identify the relevant application configuration items that you need to look at. So we have, for each control that we have to find what are the relevant application configuration items that we need to look at. And then, of course, we have to determine how to get them from the system. And finally, you have to provide a platform where we have the data stored and can use it as a source for reporting. In our case, we were very fortunate because we already had a tool that stores significant data from the SAP application, so we could use that one. So we saved a lot of time by already having a tool that we could use.
What was that tool?
It's a homegrown tool. We called it just SAP KPI tool. So we were already collecting other KPIs. And this was just an add-on. So we're doing timing. Okay, I have to speed up.
5.
5, okay. So the resources that we used, we had 2 people from Enterprise Compliance Group. Their task was to determine what are the relevant configurable controls. Actually, these are not really additional resources, because even when we used the traditional approach, we had these people from the Enterprise Compliance Group to help us identify the configurable controls. We had 1 developer, which is myself. Then we have 2 application auditors. So these application auditors were the ones that had to go through the pain to change from their traditional approach last year to the new approach this year. And they also had the objective to test the tool to make sure the data is accurate and everything. And of course, we had our external auditor involved. I've already mentioned that, to help us get the approval from the external audit that we are doing the right thing. And in fact, they also audited this new tool to make sure to give them the confidence that the data that we collect is accurate. A little slide about the architecture of the tool. So on the top, you will see our SAP applications where we pull the data from. Then the red area is the tool that we have built. So we have the KPI server. And the interesting thing is that we have these configuration tables or configuration objects on the left side where we can determine what we want to pull or what we need to pull from the SAP applications. So in fact, we have basically a procure-to-pay and a customer-to-cash cycle on almost every SAP application that we have. So the type of objects that we want to load is very much the same. So we can have this stored in one table to determine what we want to pull from the SAP systems. And we don't have to define it for every system. And the result of the load is some bucket called reporting data, which can then be viewed on the web browser interface. I mentioned earlier that we have had an evolution of the KPI tool. So we started out with IT general control information, things like access of users, change management on the system, maintenance. The next phase that we tackled was the segregation of duties part. This is still being used, but will probably soon be replaced by the GRC suite from SAP. And the latest is what we are talking about today, the SAP application controls. All right, results. So, of course, we have some reports provided by the tool. I think I can skip that one because I'm going to show you what we have. So this is the overview of one application. You can see it's about the procure-to-pay cycle. So we have some kind of indicators on what kind of change we had for each control. So green means actually you're good, you're all set, you don't need to retest. So that's actually the good news for each auditor. Areas where we see new entries, changed entries, or deleted entries have to be evaluated by somebody and the price compliance group or whoever's in charge of that to determine are these changes significant or relevant enough to justify a retest? Or can we say it's just a minor change but does not really impact the way the application works and we can still skip the retest? And this is now really the core of the whole application. This is the benchmark report itself. So you can see on the left side, you can see have there been changes or not? And if so, what table, what control has been changed? And really interesting is that we have the information about the transport. In SAP, the transport tells you who has made this change, who has imported it, and when was it done. So if you're in doubt if this is a significant change, you can use the transport number to identify the developer and ask, okay, what has been done to the application? But to be honest, it turned out that EMY asked, or our external auditor asked us to retest whenever we had a program change. And I think it makes sense, actually. Okay, I skipped that one. So finally, I come to the pros and cons. So we have, Brad already mentioned that, a significant decrease of audit working hours. We have a constant overview of all changes. So it turned out that it made sense to not only look at the audit time to the changes that we have, but looking at it on a quarterly basis, just to see how is the system developing, to know if there is a retest expected or not. And which is pretty good from our auditees' perspective. We don't need time from them because we can pull the data on our own. We don't need to go sit to them and ask them, please give us the data.
All right, that's the pain part of the equation. But yeah, let's just wrap up in the next slide. I think you have.
Yeah.
Just jot down our email address, and we're happy to exchange and collaborate. Even if you guys want it, it's a proprietary tool, but happy to do a demo with you. I'm sorry, Lily was not going to allow us. Right?
Just real quickly though, you're looking at application controls here. You're not looking at financial data.
Not in this. I'm not in this.